So,
Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York. It is the 30th of May, 2008, approximately 10 a.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Calla Osborne.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in West Virginia in 1922, 10th of October.
Okay, and you attended school there?
I attended school through high school and then went to Akron, Ohio, and took my nurse's training and entered the Army from Akron, Ohio.
Okay, and when did you enter the Army? Approximately.
In May of '44.
Okay.
Do you remember where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor and your reaction?
I was still in nurse's training, and I was very upset about it, of course. And I was worried about my relative that was in the Army.
What happened to them? Do you recall? Eventually.
Oh, nothing. He wasn't in that area.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Europe in the tank.
Did he survive the
Fourth
war?
Armored. Yes.
Okay. Now, why did you decide to enlist?
Well, they needed nurses, and I just wanted to go and help.
Now you totally finished your nurse's training before you went in.
Yes, you had to become a graduate nurse and a Red Cross nurse in order to enter the Army Nurse Corps.
Mm-hmm. How did your family feel about you going into the service?
Not too, they weren't too happy about it, and they asked me not to volunteer to go overseas, so I put wherever you wanted to send me. And ended up overseas very shortly, in September, or October, I guess.
Now where did you enter the service?
From Akron, Ohio.
Akron, okay.
Did you have to go through a basic training, or?
In Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana. And then I went to Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky. And then from there I was sent overseas.
Okay. Did you have any additional military training before you went overseas?
At Fort Benjamin Harrison we had training, and then some training in Breckenridge.
Okay.
And then when at Port of Embarkation in New Jersey we had further training.
Okay. Did you treat wounded soldiers that had been shipped back to the States for, did you,
Yes.
Okay.
We had wounded people, and then other,
Okay.
whatever.
Whatever came up.
Were you assigned to a unit in the States before you went over? Or were you assigned to a unit when you got over there?
We were assigned to the unit and then sent with the group to...
So the whole unit went together?
Yes.
What was the name or the number of the unit?
116th Evacuation Hospital.
Okay. Now, how many were in this unit, do you recall? About, approximately.
No, I don't. I should have.
That's okay.
It's probably in some of that.
Okay.
Now, what kind of ship did you take over?
We went on the SS Mariposa, and everything was very hush-hush. We were unescorted. They went down the coast. We were off Cape Hatteras and zigzagging around until we got to the Mediterranean, or to the Straits of Gibraltar. Then we had all sorts of escorts. But the strange thing was with all of that hush-hush, about midway over, Axis Sally greeted us and all the people on the boat to Europe, welcomed us to Europe. So.
Now, what was life like on the ship?
For me, it was rough. I vomited all the way to the Straits of Gibraltar.
Now, did you have to share a room with somebody, or did you have your own?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. There were about 4 of us in a room.
Okay.
Now, you were an officer at this time.
I
Also?
went in as a second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant, okay.
A shaved tail.
Mm-hmm. Now, where did you land in Europe?
In Marseille. And then I was sent to on detached service. I was sent to let's see, 43rd General Hospital near Marseille. I think it was in Aix. And then to Epinal with a field hospital, 54th Field.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with them until our unit set up in Saarburg.
Now, were others sent into these other units, or just you, or?
No, several of us were sent to
Okay.
on detached service. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a photograph of the hospital you were just mentioning. You want to just hold that up, and I'll zoom in on it with the camera.
This is our first setup as a unit in Europe, in Saarburg, France.
Okay.
Now, what were your living conditions like? Where did you stay, and
Okay.
where did you do your medical work?
In Saarburg, we were in a building, and then we started moving with tents. We followed as a war. We stayed in Saarburg for quite a while because of the Battle of the Bulge, break through the Severn Pass and the Hagenau potato mines, and Bastogne. We got people from there, and then as the war moved, we moved pretty fast in tents.
Now, were you a surgical unit?
I was in this critically, they called it post-op. It was the most critically wounded people, head injuries, and they called them sucking chest wounds.
Yeah.
And that's the most critically injured ones. I worked with them.
Now, did you prep them to be sent to the States after they
Yes.
left your unit?
Yes, or to another, like to a station hospital or a general hospital there, and on their way home.
Now, how were your supplies? Did you always have medical supplies? Did you ever run out, or?
Well, we always seem to have supplies.
Were there a lot of doctors with the unit? Older,
Yes.
experienced, or mostly younger?
Well, there was a good mixture. There was some young and some probably in their 40s and 45.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, when I was that young, everybody was old, you know. Now I know what old is.
Now, how did you get around? What kind of vehicles did you have?
Well, we were transported in the supply trucks or ambulances, and then there were jeeps. We didn't. That was with our acquaintances. That the guys from the engineers.
Now, when you were moving about, were you ever under attack or bombardment or anything?
No. No.
Okay.
but there was strafing when we were in tents at one time. There was strafing on the road near us.
Was that from an airplane?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fort Gills?
Fort Gills.
Oh, she wants me to tell you about being in a movie in Saarburg,
Oh.
France. We were watching Fort Gills in a Jeep, and I was so intent on that. And all of a sudden, my escort pulled me down on the floor, and I thought, what on earth is going on here? And I was trying to get up. He said, didn't you hear that bomb drop? There was one dropped in a nearby area, and I was so caught up.
Oh.
So it wasn't, it must have been far enough away that it didn't jolt me too much, or I would have. So,
Were all your vehicles marked with red crosses?
yes. Yes.
How about your tents? When you set up your tents, did you mark them also? Were
Those-
they marked?
Those were marked also.
Now, did you ever handle German prisoners too, or did
Yes,
you just do?
many,
Mhm.
a lot. I'm sorry. Oh, we had one, when we were in tents, we had a woman brought in. She'd been doing her laundry, and when she got through, she was sniping. So she got shot. And she was brought to us, and she was begging us to go over to her house and take her laundry down. She didn't want to leave her laundry hanging out.
Now she was a German sniper? Or?
She was a German housewife who was sniping at the American
Oh,
soldiers.
really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
Now, do you how far behind the front were you as you moved along, moved your lines?
Well, when we were in Saarburg at one time, when there was the break through the Severn Pass, there was we were very close, about, if I recall, they said 8 miles, and they were telling everybody to go back, but our colonel elected to stay where we were, so we didn't have any repercussions from it.
Mm-hmm. When you were traveling about like that, what did you do for food? Did you eat like the K rations and
K
that? or-
rations, and we ate seafood, or sea rations most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We very seldom had fresh meat and that sort of thing, you know.
Mhm.
Special occasions, like we had steak once, I think, and once we had turkey, like for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was daily life like if you were set up, your hospital was set up waiting for wounded or wounded coming in? How long were you on duty? How long were you off duty? How did you spend your free time?
12 and 12, and I spent a lot of my time writing letters home for people. I could take their addresses and so forth and write a letter home for them.
Wounded soldiers?
Yes.
Mhm.
In going back to how close we were, when I was with that field hospital, at one time you could look out the window and see a battle going on in the woods in a field, and when you walked outside you'd feel the flak on your helmets. That's how close we were at that time.
Now, you wore a helmet all the time, or
At
when
that
you were
time,
close to the
Not
front?
all the time, but at that particular time we did, because of the flak that was.
Did you wear any body protection at all? Did they
No,
give you anything else to wear?
no. We carried a mattress cover all the time in case we got shot. That was our shroud.
Now, did you ever carry any kind of weapon at all?
No,
No.
just my mess kit.
What about clothing and that for like cold weather? Was that adequate for you?
Yes, yes.
How did you keep the hospital units, the tents heated? What did you have in the tents?
We had little, there must have been oil stoves,
Mhm.
but I don't recall being cold there, you know,
Mhm.
because we had those little heaters in the place.
Did you ever get to see any USO shows or have any dignitaries come to visit the hospitals, the wounded?
Not our unit, but I did see Mickey Rooney. I can't remember where he was, and I saw Jack Benny and Ingrid Bergman and Larry Adler. They were all together, and Martha Tilton. They were in a group. That was at Taberbischofsheim.
Move closer if you want. Now, when you went from France in directly into Germany,
Yes.
could you tell us about that? Was it much different?
No, you were hardly aware, you know.
Mhm.
Saarburg was very near the...
Border, yeah.
I remember crossing the Rhine on a pontoon bridge
Mhm.
in a big truck, and that swaying in the big truck
Mhm.
didn't make you feel too secure.
Now, how were you received by the German people?
The ones that I was, we didn't have much close contact with them, or I didn't, until we were on, were on a rest period at Bad Mergentheim, and the people there that we were associated with were very nice to us.
Mhm.
Did you treat many German civilians at all? You said you
Just the sniper.
just that one, okay.
Well, there may have been some others, but I can't recall that. I remember one Frenchman at Saarburg. He was I felt so sad about him. He was so hungry. He would eat. I never saw anyone eat any more than he did. And then the poor little guy got lockjaw, and he couldn't eat, and he died of lockjaw. And I felt so sad about him.
Did you lose many patients?
Yes, we did lose quite a few. So,
How deep into Germany did you travel?
I'm trying to think where we were, but maybe I could find it in one of these. Dachau concentration camp, I think, was the deepest we went.
Could you tell us about that?
Well, it was a horrifying experience.
Now, did you realize there were concentration camps before this? Before you...
Well, I had heard about them, but nothing prepared me for Dachau. It was a horrifying experience. I was I went up on a supply truck because of my motion sickness, and my first glimpse was the railroad tracks, you know, with the box cars and the bodies spilling out onto the ground. And so that was my first introduction to there. And then I was alone in that big administration building, and I was prowling around. There were potato masher mines there, and I was just rambling around. And then that night they told us, don't ever be by yourself. There's all sorts of people here, even hardened criminals, and
That was right inside Dachau itself.
yes.
Okay.
But I was there for at least an hour or two by myself, and then they said, don't go out unless you're 5 or 6 people in a group.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, here I was.
Now you said you were prowling around there by yourself. Were there any other Americans in close
Wasn't
proximity?
anybody in that building but me. Well, I think there was a prisoner upstairs in a room, and I don't know who he was. They kept him closely guarded, and you could see him pacing up in there, but I have no idea who it was. But it was somebody that needed to be.
Now, how long were you at Dachau?
Just, I think it was just about a month or a little more. We were training people to take over the German people.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Were you in Dachau when I read or heard that they brought the civilian populace in from around the compound and paraded them through there to show what had been going on, and I guess a
Well,
lot of them said they had no idea what was going on.
they all claimed that, but I have a book written by a man who was investigating, and he says they were lying.
Mm-hmm.
They had to be lying, you know. Well, they should have been. I don't see how they could miss that odor that was around there. But the thing that I saw was they loaded up the bodies and all sorts of things, wagons and trucks, and they had mass burial. But they paraded them down through the town.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a picture someplace of part of that.
Now, you said that there were a group of soldiers there that had been at the camp, and one of them had a gun hidden, you said?
One of the guards in this book that this man wrote said that one of the guards that came down from the tower was holding a gun behind him, and this man shot him.
Now, how soon after it was the camp was liberated that you arrived? Was it a day or two, or
Just
hours?
2 or 3 days.
Okay.
I have the exact time written down someplace.
Now, you want to show us some of the photographs? This one you said were some of the prisoners, or the guards? I'm sorry.
This was given to me. It was a guard. It must have been taken by someone before
Okay.
I got there.
Okay.
That's,
Some of the bodies.
yes,
Okay.
for the mass burial.
Okay.
That's the administration building, isn't it?
What is that?
Is that the administration building?
Oh.
That's the administration building where
Yes,
you were
that's
staying?
where I was staying.
Okay.
And
Where did you stay when you were at Dachau for that month? In this
in the
building?
administration building, we were set up there.
Some locations.
Now, did your unit take care of a lot of the people that had been interned there?
Yes, we took that.
It's the crematorium.
That's the crematorium.
Were most of them suffering from malnutrition?
Oh,
and
can you hold that up again? I didn't get a chance to focus in on it. Okay. Okay.
And here are some of the people we took care of. They all had malnutrition,
Okay.
and there was typhus fever, and
What about the pennies?
they were they were pathetic. They would go out, the people that I had on my unit, and I suppose all the units would go out. They'd come in with a little twig or a piece of paper, a little tiny scrap of paper or a pebble, and you'd have to take it away from them because of the typhus fever, and they'd cry because that was a possession.
Mm-hmm.
So I had one, after I got over my seasickness, when we got to Straits of Gibraltar, I did pretty good playing cards, and I had a lot of pennies. So I used to fill my pocket with pennies, and if I had to take something from somebody, I gave them a penny,
Mm-hmm.
and that made them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one day we had a Frenchman whose bed broke down, and he called and told me his bed had broken down. And I said, I know your bed is broken. We're getting a new one for you. And he said, well, why can't I have that man's bed? And I said, why? And he said, well, he's a Polak, and I'm a Frenchman. I said, I think a war just ended because of that attitude.
Now, how long did it take to, I guess, get these people to eating regular diets? You couldn't feed them that much at first, could you?
No, but they seemed to get used to it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the supply trucks brought a big container of peanut butter and a big container of jelly, and set it on a table at the back of my unit or my ward. And I looked back there, and there was one of the guys. He was dipping into the stuff with his hand, and he was eating very heartily.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this young Italian, I think he was about 18, was breaking a window, and I asked one of the men one of my co-workers who could speak Italian, to ask him why he broke the window, and he said, well, his toenails were getting long, and he wanted to cut his toenails. So it was a different world there.
Mm-hmm. How long did you actually stay in Dachau?
A month.
A month?
A little over a month, I think. But
Now, you mentioned about this one woman in this photograph.
oh, there she is.
Okay, do you want to
What
tell
can
us?
you tell us about her?
Well, apparently she was a collaborator and had been killed by the people who were there. She had the most beautiful blonde hair, reddish blonde,
Okay.
and there were cages with the big dogs that they used
Mm-hmm.
that were dead also.
So they killed the dogs?
There's the
Well,
kennel.
I
They
don't
were
know.
like guard dogs probably,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know who killed them. Probably maybe the Americans or maybe
Mhm.
the people that.
Okay, and that's inside the gates?
That's the dog cages.
Oh, okay.
Now, you mentioned how there was a little shop outside of the camp that sold.
Well, it was
Different
in the
things?
camp near
Oh,
the
in the
SS
camp.
troopers barracks where we set up our hospital
Mhm.
unit,
Mm-hmm.
and they had leather goods there. It was made from human skin,
Mm.
tattooed, wallets, lampshades, and belts. It was horrible.
Did you ever have nightmares from this experience?
Some, but so many things started happening afterwards. We got sent to, we were sent to port of embarkation to go to the China-Burma, India area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that took some of the stress off, because it added new stress.
Right, you were going to a different area and
Yes,
the anticipation of experiencing something new.
and dread,
Mm-hmm.
dread of another sea trip, actually, another ocean trip for me.
Now, how did you feel when you heard about the dropping of the atomic bombs?
Well, it was pretty shocking, but I think we felt glad that the war was over, you know.
Now, whereabouts were you at that point?
Waiting to be shipped. We were at this port of embarkation,
Okay.
waiting to be shipped to that area.
Okay.
Do you remember where you were when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
I have it written down here someplace. We were in tents, and that's where that lady that had been strafing.
Oh, the sniper?
Yeah,
How did you feel when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
very sad. Very sad.
Now, when did you come back to the States?
I'm trying to think.
It must have been 1945 sometime.
Probably very late in the year.
Maybe, was it?
Well, let me just ask you this: when the war ended in Europe, was there a lot of celebration? And
Well, I can't remember that there was celebration at that time. I think we were,
worried about where you'd be going next?
yeah, either that or my 85-year-old brain is
Oh.
wearing out on me.
Now, when you got back to the States, you said you re-enlisted. Why did you decide to re-enlist?
Well, my friends that were home already were changing jobs and switching around and unsettled, and I thought, well, I'll just get my feet on the ground again, get back to earth, and so
Now, did your other friends that were nurses in the service with you, did any of them re-enlist too?
I don't think anybody did.
Okay.
Where were you stationed after you re-enlisted?
Camp Atterbury in Indiana.
And you stayed there until you left the service?
Yes. Well, first I went to White Sulphur Springs, to Ashford General Hospital, and I was there until they decided to close that. Then they sent me to Atterbury, and I was discharged from Camp Atterbury.
And you reached the rank of captain?
No,
Oh,
I didn't get my captaincy,
Oh, you didn't.
and I don't know why.
Now, you received a Bronze Star. Could you hold that up, please? Maybe if you wanted to read the citation. And your daughter will read your citation.
Okay.
Calla M. Deaver, First Lieutenant, Army Nurse Corps, 116th Evacuation Hospital, semi-mobile, for meritorious service and direct support of combat operations from 30th November 1944 to 1st of May 1945 in France and Germany. Lieutenant Deaver cared for some of the most seriously wounded with an unsurpassed combination of nursing skill and human tenderness. Her work was most trying and exacting because of the precarious condition of her patients. Her pleasant manner and cheerful spirit inspired courage, and her professional ability brought remarkable results. Entered military service from Jane Lou, West Virginia.
Okay.
Very nice.
Well, thank you. Now, We'll hold some of these others.
By the way, when you got your first lieutenant's pin, it says you darn near fell in the ditch. That's what you wrote in here.
Did you tell us about that? How did you almost? Oh,
That was probably just a surprise.
Who pinned the bars on you? The commanding officer there, or?
Colonel Ball was our commanding officer, so
Okay.
now, could you tell us where and when those were taken, if you recall?
this was in Akron, Ohio.
Was that before you went into service?
Before I went into the service.
Or when you first went in? Okay.
And this would have been at Fort Benjamin Harrison.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how about this? What is that?
This is my identification.
Okay, and can you show us the back of that card, which I thought was kind of interesting, with the Red Cross?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I still remember my Army
Oh, you're.
serial number.
Oh, do you?
N745398. That's about all I could remember.
How about these?
This was
Did you
when
wanna
we
do
were
something?
in
Had you wanna do
tents.
something?
The little one there? The little
I found
The
photo?
little one was when we were in tents.
Okay.
And I really can't remember where this was taken.
Okay, that's a formal photo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, oh, you still have another photo, or did you?
Oh,
Oh, okay. Well,
did you?
yes, I did get that one.
Okay, if you hold this up, what is this?
Oh, this is my diary that I kept.
Now, was it legal for you to keep a diary?
Yes.
Okay. I know some of the soldiers that, or veterans had told us that they weren't supposed to do it, but most of them did it anyway.
Well, probably because they were on the front line.
Right.
You kept it from the time you embarked to the time you disembarked, so.
Yeah. But I wasn't on the front line.
No, I know,
was
but it
very
was-
near.
Okay.
I did find the entry about President Roosevelt on April 12th. He said that you, that everyone was very sad and you hoped that Truman would prove satisfactory.
Now, after you left the service, you continued in nursing?
I went back to Akron to my training, the hospital I trained at.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you stay in nursing?
Till 1984.
Oh. So you had a full career, a long career as a nurse.
Long
Now, did you ever, were you able to make use of the GI Bill?
No, unfortunately, I didn't. Oh, in buying a home.
Oh, okay.
Now, when you married, was your husband a veteran?
He's an ex-POW.
Oh.
He was paratrooper who had to jump on D-Day. They had to jump before the beach invasion to set up communications. He was with the Screaming Eagles.
Oh, okay.
And he was captured then, or later?
About 7 hours after he jumped.
Oh, he was captured. Wow.
Yeah. He was liberated in about 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
And he really didn't have inhumane treatment. He was hungry, but so were the people that had him in prison.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you ever join any veterans organizations at all?
Seems like I did.
Like the VFW or the American Legion?
My husband joined VFW, and I got a thing about joining it, but it wasn't for women. It was
Oh, like the auxiliary was?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
thought, well, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I wasn't auxiliary. So I didn't join that.
And you're
Mhm.
both members of the POW, ex-POW group.
Yes, I belong to the XPOW group,
Still
which
attends
Mhm.
through my husband.
Now, did you ever attend any reunions?
Not for my group, but for my husband's group.
Okay.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
I did for a while, but the ones that I was in contact with have died,
Well,
so I don't know about the others.
mhm.
How do you think your time in the service had an effect on your life?
Well, it had quite an effect. I can't just explain,
Mhm.
but it was, I felt, in nurses training you feel kind of put down, you know, because you're under strict rules and everything, and then you feel kind of like a thing, you know. And then when I got in the Army and was taking care of those people, I felt very useful
Mhm.
and like I was really doing something to help, you know.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that I did it. I would do it again.
Mhm.
I don't think they'd take me though at 85.
Well, I don't know. You seem pretty spry.
Okay.
The doctor at the VA told me the other day to go upstairs and apply for a job.
Oh.
I turned it down.
Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Well, thank
Unless
you
there
for
are-
having me.
Any other stories that you remember? Or?
Anything else you
I'm
want to
trying to think
go
of what's
over?
kind of prompting as we went through.
I'm
We missed any.
trying to think of any others.
Was there any other photographs that we maybe missed that you think should be included?
Let me see. There is the one with the bronze, there is the Bronze Star presentation. I don't know whether,
It's kind of dark.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's too hard to see. I love the different crew
No, were
movements.
these
What-
photographs? These weren't when somebody
These were Army issue, I
Army
believe.
issue, yeah.
Yeah,
Not,
Now, what about that
because these
photo?
appear in a book that we got later, photocopy from
Oh.
somebody, so.
What about that photo there where she's in her uniform, looks like
Yeah, this is it.
overseas?
This is no, this is Atterbury.
Oh.
Oh, that one, oh, I love that one, yeah.
this is me in my combat boots.
Oh. Okay, and that was taken overseas?
Yes, probably at Sarbert.
Okay.
It looks like it in the Balcon. Do we not write on that one? Maybe not. And then this is Atterbury.
And that one there is stateside.
Yeah.
When she
Yeah.
came home, you want to just hold that up and I'll zoom in on it. That one there was what, about 46 or 47?
Yes, back home again in Indiana, huh?
Okay. All right, well,
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
Well,
You know what was funny? We
I'm
found
sorry.
a photo of her in a book on Camp Atterbury, on Ashford General, or not Camp Atterbury, Ashford General Hospital. A friend of ours was from the White Sulphur Springs area and happened to loan us this book on Ashford because she'd served there. And all of a sudden, my mother let out a yell. She goes, "Look it was her."
Oh.
Her what?
Huh.
Unidentified, but it was a picture of her and a couple other people in the unit.
Okay, well, thank you.
well, I'm sorry, my memory is so.
Oh, no,
no, your
no,
memory
you've
was
got
fine.
you've got a great memory. Thank you
Well,
again. Okay, go ahead.
When we were in tents, we didn't have showers or baths. They would take us now and again to a place that did have showers, but most of the time we had to do baths from helmets.
Tell me about bathing the patients.
Then, yes, you were mentioning about bathing the patients.
Oh,
And
when I went to the General Hospital in X, this nurse said to me, "They're sending these patients back dirty. When you get up there, do something about baths." So I thought, well, that's horrible, patients not getting a bath. And when I got up there, I found out why. It was more important to give a blood transfusion or plasma or take care of a wound than to give a bath. So there were a lot of people that didn't get baths because it was either save a life or clean them up.
Yep.
So.
And then there was about Christmas.
Oh, at Christmas time, we tried to do something for the patients. So we took inflated glove fingers and dyed them with dye from the lab to make little decorations for a tree, and cut spirals and stars, and made candle holders from the plasma cans, and made a little tree, and took them around to the patients' bedsides. So that was
one thing that I found in here from March 1st. It says heavy fighting in Haguenau. This is when she would have been at Sarber. Heavy fighting in Haguenau. Lots of shoe mines, many amputations. These boys can take it. I love them all.
Yeah.
It was kind of neat.
We did get a lot of people back from the potato mines in Haguenau, and they lost, a lot of them had lost their legs, and they were worried about how their loved ones was going to accept them when they got home. So that was sad. I wrote a lot of letters home for them.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, thank you again.
Mm-hmm.